A very good day to all of you. So our topic for today is active and passive voice. Let me give you an example first. The hunter killed the tiger. This is an active sentence, and let's identify the elements of this sentence. The hunter is the subject, killed is the verb, and the tiger is the object. So we have the structure subject, verb, object. So this is supposed to be an active sentence. When we want to convert it into a passive sentence, it becomes the tiger was killed by the hunter. Now, what goes into forming a passive sentence out of an active sentence? This is what we do. We put the form of verb to be in the same form as that of the active verb. And we put the plus we add the past participle of the active verb, and we add the by agent. The subject of the active sentence becomes the agent of the passive sentence. So our first sentence was the hunter killed the tiger, and the passive form was the tiger killed the hunter. So in this case, in this sentence, we have the main verb is killed. So we put that form of verb be, since it is the past tense. So past form of the verb be was, and the past participle of killed is killed. So and we put the object in place of the subject, that is tiger in place of the hunter. The tiger was killed. Then we add a by agent by the hunter. So this is how to form passivization. This is our passive form. Now we'll look at how to passivize the various tense forms. Our first examples are present, past, and perfect passive tenses. So we first have the present tense. That is the first sentence. First example is we keep the butter here. Now, if you want to passivize, the main verb of this sentence is keep. So we will put the verb to be in the same tense as that of this main verb. So the butter is, since it is the present tense, the butter is kept here. And the second sentence is we can add the by phrase, or we can, that is optional, because since we have an indefinite pronoun over here, indefinite agent. So even if we do not put the by phrase, our passivization is still correct. So the second example here is the past tense, they broke the window. Now again, the main verb is broke, which is in past tense. So again, let's go for the form of a verb be. The window was, since it is past tense, the window was broken. That is enough for passivization. By agent is optional. Now the third case is present perfect. That is, people have seen wolves in the street. So again, here we have the perfect tense. So the main verb is seen, which is again the past. So we have wolves have been. The verb be here is been seen in the streets. This is our passivization for present, past, and present perfect. More passivization for continuous forms. For present continuous, they are repairing the bridge. So again, we have the bridge. We put that object of the active sentence in place of the subject, the bridge, and we make some logical adjustment, because since it is the bridge is singular, we use the singular verb is instead of are. The bridge is being, because repairing is present progressive. So we have the same form of the same tense for the verb be. The bridge is being repaired. Repair is the past participle of this verb, the main verb repair. For past progressive, they were carrying the injured player off the field. So the player was being carried off the field. This is passivization for the past progressive. Other continuous tenses, the passivization is quite rare. Now coming to auxiliary plus infinitive. When we have the auxiliary, the examples as you see on this page, you must shut these doors. So these doors must be shut. Shut, since it is we have all the forms as shut, we do not have any. The base form is the same, the past is the same, as well as past participle is the same. So these doors must be shut. They ought to have told him, perfect infinitive, and the passivization is he ought to have been told. Now, on other infinitive combinations, that is when we have object plus infinitive, that is he wants someone to take the photographs. So we have an object over here, he wants someone to take photographs. So he wants the photographs to be taken. This is the passive passivization of this. Another thing is when we have invitation plus indirect object plus infinitive. He invited me to go. I was invited to go. In the next case, we have the verbs like advise, beg, order, recommend, urge plus indirect object plus infinitive plus object. For instance, the active form is he urged the council to reduce the rates. The passivization can be in two ways. The council was were urged to reduce the rates, or he urged that the rates be reduced. Another case is with verbs agree, be, anxious, arrange, be determined, decide, demand, plus infinitive plus object. He decided to sell the house. He decided that the house be sold. This is the passivization for this active form. Now we come to the gerund combinations. As you know, gerund is also an ing form, a verbal noun. So let's take an example. He recommended using bulletproof glass. So here we have he recommended using is the gerund, bulletproof glass. He recommended what? He recommended using bulletproof glass. So he recommended that bulletproof glass should be used because our object is using the bulletproof glass. So this gerund forms the object, and he recommended remains as such. So bulletproof glass should be used as the passive form. One more example of the gerund. I remember them taking me to the zoo. So here again, let's identify the elements. I remember them taking me to the zoo. So what is the subject which is active in this case? The subject, the first subject is the one who remembers. But what is the active subject? The active subject is them, who actually took him to the zoo. So we are not concerned with I remember. It's not in the frame of passivization. We start with them. And me is the object, and to the zoo is that which will be there as such. So the passive is I remember being taken to the main verb is taking. So we have that form of the same tense for be as the tense of the main verb, which is progressive. I remember being taken to the zoo. So this is for gerund combinations. Now these are in this picture you can see the passivization, passive equivalents of all the active tenses for the verb keep. We have the simple present, present continuous, past, past continuous, present perfect, past perfect, future, conditional, perfect conditional, present infinitive, perfect infinitive, present participle or gerund, and perfect participle. So these are all the passive equivalents for the active tenses. Now, in the next case, we have we can also use instead of be, we can also use the verb get. So the eggs got broken. We can use this for a passive sentence. Then, when we have, if we have, till now we were using just one object, but what if we have two objects? In this case, as you can see on this page, she was given a bulldog. They gave her a bulldog. So we have two objects. They is the subject, gave is the verb, her is the indirect object who is the recipient, and bulldog is the direct object which was the thing that was given. So the passivization can be done in two ways since we have two objects over here. A bulldog was given to her. This is the first way that we can passivize, and she was given a bulldog. This is the second way that we can passivize because we have two objects over here. Next is the case of questions. What delayed you? So what were you delayed by? Then with the prepositions. Next we have the passivization for interrogation. For example, what did they steal? So what was stolen? Who painted it? Who was it painted by? So these are the examples of interrogatives. Now a question arises that when we can do the things, when we can, everything can be done in active form, why do we need to use the passive form in the first place? So there are various reasons to use passive forms. Now we are going to list the reasons, the various reasons why the passive form is used instead of the active form. Now have a look at this page for very common things where activity is more important than the doer. For very common things, example is the rubbish hasn't been collected. So we don't need the doer. It is only the activity that is important. The rubbish hasn't been collected, or your hand will be x-rayed. We don't know who will x-ray the hand. It's such a common thing that we just need the passive form. Your hand will be x-rayed. The streets are swept every day. We are not concerned with the agency. We are just concerned with the activity or the action. The streets are swept every day. So we just use the passive form. And in the second case, when the doer of the activity is unknown, again, as you can see examples on this page, the minister was murdered. My car has been moved. We do not know by whom. We do not know the agent who committed this act, but we are just concerned with the activity. My watch was stolen. We don't know by whom who stole the watch, but we are concerned with the activity, the action. So when the subject, in the third case, when the subject of the active verb would be people. Again, as you see this example, he is suspected of receiving stolen goods. So the subject is people suspect him of receiving stolen goods. So the subject is not important here. What is important is the activity, the action. He is suspected of receiving stolen goods. So in the fourth case, when the subject of the active case would be an indefinite pronoun, this sort of advertisements can be seen everywhere. So we won't say that one sees or you see you can see these advertisements everywhere. This sort of advertisements can be seen everywhere is more logical. It's more rational. And then in the other case, in the fifth case, when you can use the active form, you can use the passive form for, we have an example, the house next door has been bought by Mr. Jones. So we don't know, in this case, the subject or the agent is least important to us because he's unknown or unfamiliar to us. What is important is the house next door which has been sold and has been bought by a certain Mr. Jones whom we do not know. But in the next case, when we use the active form, it changes to the active form because we know Mr. Jones. Your father's friend, Mr. Jones, has bought the house next door. Now, in this case, the subject is more important to us because the subject is familiar to us. As you can see from the example, your father's friend, Mr. Jones, has bought the house next door. They are building the new public library. The council is building, we are building, that is not important. They are building the new public library. And in the F case, when we arrived home, a detective arrested him. So we are not concerned who arrested him. That is, when he arrived home, he was arrested. Then passive is also used for some psychological reasons. Now let's have a look at this example when the employer says that overtime rates are being reduced. So in this case, the employer does not want to associate with this activity, which will not be liked by the workers because the overtime rates are being reduced. But just have a look at the next sentence, in which case he says that we are increasing the overtime rates. So in this case, this is a positive sign with the workers, and he wants to be associated with this. So he uses the active form, that is, we are increasing the overtime rates. And in the previous case, he dissociates himself from this activity of reducing rates, and he uses the passive form. The overtime rates are being reduced. So these are the various reasons why we use passive forms in place of the active forms. Now, A few more examples with prepositions. Uh, Examples are Duffy painted this picture. Passivization is this picture was painted by Duffy, that is the agent by. And who makes these holes? What are these holes made by? And similarly, smoke filled the room. Now here we have a change. We don't use by because it's a non-living thing. Smoke filled the room. The room was filled with smoke. Again, paint covered the lock. The lock was covered with paint. In the previous cases, we used by because the agent was animate. Here we use with because we have inanimate things. Then again we use a verb plus how we passivize a verb plus preposition plus object combination. We must write to him. So the passivization is the object comes in place of the subject. He must, as it is, write. We use the same form of the verb be. He must be, and past participle written, and the preposition comes at the end. He must be written to. The second example is you can play with these cups quite safely. The passivization goes, these cups can be played with quite safely. Similarly, with verb plus preposition or adverb combinations, they threw away the old newspapers. So the old newspapers is the object which comes in place of the subject. The newspapers were, of course, because the plural form, were thrown away. Were is the be form of, we use the same form as the main verb, threw, which is past. So the old newspapers were thrown. Thrown is the past participle, and away is the adverbial. They threw the old newspapers. The old newspapers were thrown away. This is the passivization of the active form. He looked after the children well. The children were well looked after. Now, if we have a clause instead of as an object in place of a noun, a word, or two words, people believe that he was speaking the truth. Now, for this, we can have either we can use a it combination. It is believed that he was speaking the truth, or he was believed to be speaking the truth. This is with the clause. When we have a clause as an object, we can passivize it in two ways, either with the it construction, or we can make the subject he as the object as of this sentence as the subject. That is, people believed him. We can either use him or we can use the it construction. There are two ways to passivize the active sentences that have clauses as objects. Then we have examples like infinitives placed after passive verbs infinitives placed after passive verbs are normally full infinitives. We saw them go out, but when we passivize it, the to infinitive comes in. They were seen to go out. They let us go, or we were let go. Again, here we have those examples where we have clauses which I've already told you. So I think that we come to the end of active and passive sentences, active and passive formation that we have done. So this is how the passivization done. It's a simple procedure, step-by-step procedure. And if you follow these steps, the passivization can be easily done. You just have to focus on the main verb. You have to put the same form of the verb be, and you have to put the past participle of the main verb, plus you have to add the by agent. The subject, the object of the active sentence becomes the agent of the passive sentence. So these are the steps that we have to follow. So we have come to the end of this active-passive topic today. Thank you very much.